New patterns of cultural contacts are intriguing at the end of the long 19th century. The first real sign of a new kind, a new potential for what we would now call a global consumer culture emerges in the final decade of the 19th century, in the beginnings of the internationalization of several key Western sports, most notably from Britain, soccer, which begins to spread to Latin America, to parts of Asia, and by the 1920s, a little bit after our period, literally the whole world, on its way to becoming the world's most agreed upon international sport. Also, in the late 19th century, the beginnings of the spread of American baseball to Latin America and the Caribbean, but also to Japan. A Japanese baseball team defeated an American Navy team in the mid-1890s to the great delight of the Japanese, to Korea and elsewhere. These developments, seemingly sort of trivial, are another sign that a final facet of the long 19th century that needs to be noted beneath the surface of exploitation, imperialism, etc. A final facet is the beginnings of the emergence of new kinds of global connections and contacts, some of them institutional, some of them new evidences of international cultural interaction that would gain a life of their own and help shape the next period in world history as well. Let me emphasize finally the brevity of this long 19th century, particularly the extent to which many crucial developments spread not just through the whole long 19th century, but in its final half or two-thirds. This is a story of Western dominance. It is a story of Western economic and military controls that are striking, that make this period, at least superficially, unusually simple. But again, it's also brief. The reason we end the period in 1914, though we'll have to talk about this more in a subsequent discussion, the reason we end this period in 1914 is not just because of the dramatic fact of World War I, but because it was during and as a result of World War I that this kind of easy Western dominance in the world at large began to come to an end. A few decades, very interesting, very important. We live with their legacy still, but a few decades only.